So first and foremost, I'd like to thank BQ for sending me these products for this episode of what seems like is turning into an anthology of Klipper solutions at this point. In front of me, I have the Bigtreetech Pi4B, CB1, and HDMI5 touchscreen, along with the quintessential rubber duckies that come with every Bigtreetech product. Inside of the first box, there's a heatsink and the Pi4B adapter board. Here we have the CB1 board that will attach to the Pi4B. Next we have the HDMI5 screen and a little bag of goodies included with it. Here we can see the screen with the usual stuff on the side. There's an HDMI port, USB Type-C connection, and an audio port. Ooh. There are also brightness controls and a display flip button that will rotate the screen 180 degrees. The CB1 is a modular unit designed to replace a Raspberry Pi CM4 board. It plugs into the Pi4B adapter, which has a 40-pin GPIO section, includes 2 micro HDMI ports, so figuratively speaking, you could run 2 displays. It has a USB-C port to power the unit from a 5-volt source. It has 4 USB ports, an Ethernet port, and a 5-volt power section for a cooling fan for the CPU. The CB1 is a 4-core H616 processor, is available with 512 megabytes or 1 gigabyte of RAM, is available with an optional 16 or 32 gigabyte eMMC module built in, and includes built-in Wi-Fi with an antenna to extend the range. On the bottom, there's a DSI port that is only compatible with the Raspberry Pi unit and the SD slot for the Linux operating system. So if we take a look at the Bigtreetech CB1 GitHub page, we can see that they have a user's manual available. There's some 3D models that you can download to build into your 3D model assemblies. There's some schematics for the hardware, some images, and if you scroll down, there's a link to download the latest system image and also the source code as well. Looking down inside of here, we could see that there's a lot of in-depth information on setting up the Wi-Fi, and then going into the boardenv.txt to set up device tree overlays to do certain things like change the resolution for the 7-inch or the 5-inch screens, turn on the TFT35 SPI overlay, enable the MCP2515 SPI overlay for CAN bus. I haven't really dug too far into this yet, but it's interesting to see how much stuff they actually offer for their device tree overlays. I'm not one for reading off specifications, but you can see right here what the board actually has. The nice thing about the CB1 is that it is a modular system. So the CB1 board can be used on a Manta 4, 5, or 8 driver board. And what's really cool about it is that it's a direct plug-in system, so it'll actually plug directly onto the Manta board. You don't even need a Pi4B to connect it to those types of boards. There are also video guides on how to configure the CB1 and Pi4B. So on paper, this looks like a really good system. I'm going to download the system image right now. I'm going to burn it onto an SD card, and we will pick back up once that is actually working. Okay, so I downloaded the file. I'm going to fire up my Raspberry Pi imager. I'm going to choose my operating system. I'll choose the CB1 Debian Klipper kernel that I downloaded. I'll choose my storage and hit write. Hit yes and let it do its thing. Okay, so I downloaded the image, I burned it onto the SD card, and now I have to follow the steps to get it all ready to run on the CB1. So I'll open up my File Explorer. I'll put that right here, put it side by side with the instructions, and it looks like I have to go into system.cfg, which is right here. I'll open that with Notepad, and then from here I'll have to put in my SSID and my password. Before I do that, if we look in the configuration file, we can see that there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can actually change or we can find information on. We can rotate the screen, which is interesting. I would like to see how Klipper screen rotates 90 degrees left and right. That would be kind of cool. There's a time date CTL list time zones command that we can run to change the default time zone. There's a bunch of Wi-Fi settings right here, and then there's some optional settings here for a BTT pad such as vibration effects and sound effects and things like that. So let me put in my Wi-Fi information, and then from there I can power up the CB1 and see if I can connect to it via SSH. So once we get the image burned onto there, we set up our Wi-Fi information, and now we have to go into the boardenv.txt file and then follow these instructions here to set it up for reading the normal version in the device tree overlay. So we have to go down into here. The very first option, we have to make sure that it's set to Sun50i-H616-BQ-SD. So let's fire that up and see what that looks like. Okay, so I've got the file open, and let's just take a look here. We could see that it's set up for FDT file equals Sun50i-H616-BQ-SD, which is correct. If we set the console equals serial, then we would get UART on the serial pins on the GPIO section. Here in the HDMI output resolution section, we can add the extra arguments needed to run a 5-inch or 7-inch display if the 5-inch or 7-inch display does not come up. If we go to overlays equals SPI DEV1_2 and uncomment this, that gives us the SPI to run the ADXL345 accelerometer. And while I'm here, I'll just set this to serial. From there, we'll just save our configuration and get ready to power on. So one thing to make note of is that when you plug in your HDMI cable, plug it into this plug right here, or else the screen will not turn on. But we can see right here that after a few seconds, the device powers on, Klipper screen comes up, and everything seems to be in good working order. The screen is responsive. We have all the necessary files installed. We have all of our setting pages, and everything is on the up and up. Now we can see here at the computer that after we power it up and we give it a second, it does register on my router. It comes up with a host name. It comes up with an IP address. And if we try to ping it, we will get ping. And then if we try to ping the host name, surprisingly enough, that one works too. If you want to SSH into the device, the login is BQ and the password is BQ. So if you put those into your SSH terminal, you will be able to access the device. Root access is turned off by default, so you will not be able to access root. I did try to do that and it didn't work so well. But if you put in BQ for the username and password, it comes right up. And because it's part of the sudoers group, you can actually sudo into it and pretty much gain root access anyway. So the one thing that I'm finding is that the CB1 comes with Mainsail already installed on it. And it doesn't have the Kaya script, so in order to install that, I would have to go to the Kaya page and then install the git clone. So I'll do that while I'm here. Just grab these 3 lines just because. Here, Control, Shift, and V. Enter. And we can see right there, it runs the Kaya script just fine. I'll do an install. I will install Fluid. It'll ask me to choose a different port, and in this case, I'll choose 5000. Install the macros, and there we go. Now we have Fluid. Okay, so just like with the Innovato Quadra, I've logged into my Neptune 3 MKS Pi. I'll go to my printer.cfg, Control A, Control C. I'll go into the CB1, find the printer.cfg there. Get rid of this, just Control V. Because I turned on the serial in the configuration, I do have UART capability, so I should be able to, technically speaking, just tap right into my UART pins and get this thing up and going without any kind of major snafus. Copy and paste my printer CFG, and it should just come right up. If I do a make menu config, you can see that it's just a standard make menu config. There's nothing special about this. We can go into the STM32. We can choose from the list. Make sure we choose the right bootloader. Make sure we choose the right pins. And now looking through some of the Bigtreetech information, it seems like if it's the same on the Manta board as it is on the Pi4B, then it should just be pin 6, 8, and 10 to connect to the UART. So I'm going to try that, and hopefully I don't let out any magic smoke. So as a side note, I did get it to run on USB before I hooked up to the UART pins. I flashed the bin file for the USB port, and then in my printer CFG, I went and changed the serial from TTY-S0 to TTY-USB0, and then on a save and restart, it all just came right back up. So that portion of it worked very well. I did have a little bit of a snafu with the UART pins, only because the UART pins are backwards on the MKS Pi versus the CB1 Pi4B combo. So I had to just take some jumpers and throw them on there to switch the TX and RX pins, and everything just worked right after that. And you can't really tell a difference, but here we have the device running on the UART pins, and it all just seems to be working okay. You could see that the unit runs a little hot, but that's no different than the temperatures that are running on my MKS Pi units, so it's not scary, but it's better to have them a little bit lower. You can circumvent that with the heatsink or by installing a 5-volt Pi fan. So while not the sexiest of shots, I did get it all hooked up, and I do have the screen attached, and as you can see here, the screen's very nice. It's a lot more compact than the 7-inch, which I do like, but the buttons are large enough to still maneuver around the screen quite well. I am pretty happy with the 5-inch screen, quite honestly. I kind of wish I had this for both of my machines. But you can see the buttons take effect, and if I pan over, you can see that it moves the machine around, and everything seems to be in good working order. And as a final note before I end this video, I managed to rotate the screen 90 degrees, and I got Klipper screen in a vertical orientation, and I really like it. I really, really like it. You can see right here, the user interface in a vertical is nice. It would be a great way to mount this to my Neptune 3 and replace the original D-Win screen. And then here's the unveiling without the plastic on it. The picture got a little bit washed out, but you kind of get the idea. So my takeaways regarding the Pi4B and CB1 is that it's no harder to install Linux onto it than the MKS Pi or Libre Renegade. You simply run the Raspberry Pi installer, you follow the instructions on the GitHub page, and as long as you don't do any dumbs, everything comes up no problem. It's not as easy as the MKS Pi with the prepackaged eMMC module because Klipper's already installed on it. It's also not as easy as the Innovato Quadra because the distro is already installed on that. You simply run the Kaya script, and after that, everything just comes up. It is compatible with the 5-inch screen, as long as you don't do a dumb like I did and plug it into the wrong HDMI port. It is UART capable, and as long as you get the TX and RX pins in the right orientation, it comes up right away. It is a modular system, which makes it great to run on other Bigtreetech or BQ products. It does require cooling in the form of a heatsink or a fan, or both. The 4 USB ports and onboard Wi-Fi make it very versatile because you can run multiple printers with this type of hardware. It gives you easy access to device tree overlays, so you simply open up the environment text file and you can modify the options to your heart's content. The ability to present Klipper screen in multiple directions is really cool. That being said, this is the second to least expensive option that I've tested, but you have to order from the BQ website in order to get it for the $37.50, so there is a little bit of a waiting period. So that'll about wrap it up for this video. Thank you all again for watching. If you're enjoying this type of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment if you have any kind of questions or suggestions, and make sure you share with your friends because sharing is caring. Drop me some suggestions in the comments below for future videos if you want to see me do more stuff with the CB1, the MKS Pi, the Innovato Quadra, or the Libre Renegade. I do have access to all of those, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see any kind of future videos with those. That being said, if anybody knows how to compile real-time kernels for any of these ARM processors, I would greatly appreciate it because I want to try and run Linux CNC on one of these things. If you're interested in this type of setup, Check out my affiliate link in the description below. It'll bring you to the BQ store, and you can pick up a CB1 and a Pi4B, or a CB1 and a Manta board, or any of the other products that BQ has to offer at no additional cost to you. All it does is put a little bit of catnip into my kitty. Thank you again to all of my catnip contributors, both past, present, and future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.